Go ahead, America.
I was just going to say, what can you guys expect going up against Mike? You know him so well. I'm just a Mike Vrabel coach team. What are you guys heading into?
Well, you know the stuff that Mike preaches, and that's physicality, that's toughness, that's use of hands, and that's being sound across all three portions of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. And also, I think Mike is really good at formulating a plan that that fits all three together. It's working the game as opposed to working each individual group. And then a lot of principles of playing smart football and not doing things that hurt the team and put the team in a bad spot. You see that in the way they play. Really good using their hands, offense and defense. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Specifically on their offense, when you look at it, does it resemble Vrabel offense or Josh McDaniels offense?
I mean, I think that anytime you have a head coach, the team's going to take the personality of the head coach. So I think that's probably the strongest thing that comes across in that. But probably the reason that Mike hired Josh, and I don't want to speak for him, but the reason he probably hired him is they're like minds when it comes to a lot of things. So you do see a lot of similarities in things that, Josh McDaniels' offense has done over the years, but that's probably not just, it's not a coincidence, the fact that both of them are, of the same mind with a lot of things. So quarterback's playing really well. He's taking care of the ball. He's using his legs. He's putting them in winning positions. He's certainly an outstanding young player. Tone, I saw that Clay Matthews advanced. Yeah, one of the best players I've been around. Just a guy that could sort of do it all. He played middle linebacker, played outside linebacker off the ball, could play 3-4 outside linebacker, could rush as a defensive end. I got the fortune. I was around Clay here. I wasn't coaching then, but I was around Clay here, and then got to spend some years with his brother Bruce at Tennessee, and then had his son kick my butt when he was in Green Bay when I was in Detroit, and then also went against Bruce's son Jake. So I think Clay Sr. is probably the only one that I didn't get a go round in the NFL, but he probably would have been
Jim is eligible.
Oh, is he? Yeah, he was just one of those guys. I don't know if it hurt him, but the fact that he was jack of all trades, he could do so many things on the field. He didn't really settle in and pump one thing over the other, a lot of sacks or a lot of interceptions. He had a lot of both, but one didn't skew more that might have got him a little bit more attention. But I think he led the NFL in tackles a few years, and that just shows you what a good all around player he was. So I'm rooting for him.
You say Josh McDaniels' offense. What kind of, when you think of that, what kind of comes to mind? What is sort of the principles that you have to face?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is utilization of the tight ends. That's been a New England / Josh McDaniels thing for a long time. Both Hoop and Hunter Henry are playing really well for them, both in the run game and in the passing game. So that's probably a big thing. And just scheme specific or opponent specific game plans. Do a good job of scheming up things that maybe are, not advantageous to you. They do a good job putting their guys in position, and then just quality quarterback play. Obviously I don't say it's easy, but it goes when Tom Brady's playing well, maybe you don't get as much credit as when a second year, player like Maye is, is doing a good job, and you're seeing some similar things in the way that they ran things. So a lot of checks, a lot of ways to keep them out of bad plays. They're big into trying to stay out of bad plays. A lot of complementary things that look like one thing that they give you something else. So good counterpunch offense, and we'll have our work cut out for us.
As you've seen Grant play since you've been there with him?
I don't know. I thought he was playing really at a high level before he got to his injury in 2023. He's doing a lot of things for us, and he's doing them all well. He's playing with great effort. He's playing with physicality. He can play in the box. He's been blitzing well. Man-to-man coverage and zone coverage. And I think a little bit early in the season he was pressing to try to make plays, and ended up getting out of position a little bit, and he's been dynamite in that area the last couple games, and ball sort of finding him, and we ask a lot from him, from all our different personnel groups. We have an extra backer, sort of short yardage package. He plays like a corner position. Base will play a safety position. We have a big nickel that he plays the big nickel. We have nickel where he's playing a safety, dime where he's playing like a dime linebacker. That's not easy to do. That's very difficult to do. But he has the skill set to do it, and the intelligence and the work ethic to do it. He's making a lot of plays for us.
I don't know the numbers, but I always assumed that you preferred not to blitz, and yet you pumped it up against Miami. Is that just the game plan thing, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, not all of those were really blitzes. Some of it simulated pressure stuff, and there were a lot more pass situations in that game that just different things we were trying to take advantage of. Every week it's a little bit different. I don't go into a game with a set number. I think the lifeblood of what you do defensively is your ability to rush with 4. But you also need to enhance that at times by bringing 5, bringing 6, bringing zone pressure, bringing simulated pressure, moving guys around a little bit. I think you saw all of those in that game. I think the biggest thing was just the opportunity to use more of that stuff, because there were, we had the lead and there were a lot more situations. We did a really good job of shutting down their perimeter and their screen game, which put them in a lot of second and longs, third and longs, which allowed us to be in our rush stuff. So every game a little bit different. There's nothing that we ran in the game that we haven't run before. It's just the opportunity to use it.
In terms of wanting to be better and get better, do you feel that intensity in practice leading into a week, and do you see that kind of maybe going to other teammates too?
Yeah, he's a very driven guy. He's a very motivated guy. He is a guy that gives us energy, not just on Sunday, but during the week. And I think that's probably, mentioned him playing his best. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've seen with Grant. Grant has every year taken a little more increased in the leadership role, and it's time. You want the team. I think I said this. You have to go back and check my stats, but I think I said this when we signed him to the extension a few years ago, and I told him, I'm like, I want our defense to play with your personality. And I think that's a great compliment to a player, and that's a great compliment to him, that he has a personality that you would like to be contagious.
Friday before the game, how you said that it might be time for your defense to start taking some risks. And you said after the game that he felt like he did that, and that is the Jim that he knows, quote unquote. What does it mean, or was that the most aggressive game plan you had going into that game against Miami?
I don't know if I'd say that, because there was a lot more variety in the game plan, but not all of it was like super risky. It wasn't like we were zero blitzing a bunch and doing things like that. We were sort of playing our scheme, letting the plays come to us, and again, there was more opportunity to use some of the things that we have in our scheme. I think that's probably my takeaway. I thought it was really, really well executed by the players. a lot of that stuff has a lot of layers, and what Miami does with a lot of motions and shifts really makes it hard. And it was a really hard week of practice, but we played a really clean game, not just from a physical standpoint. We didn't miss very many tackles. We covered pretty well, those kind of things. But we played a really clean game as far as communication and assignment and things like that. And that's what I was proud of in the game.
Tackle really livened up the crowd. Can it liven up a sideline too, seeing it?
Yeah, I don't really pay much attention to the crowd as the game goes, but you definitely feel stuff like that on the sideline. I think anybody that's making plays, that can be contagious. And we talked about Grant before, but guys rushing well, guys making hits on the quarterback, guys making big hits anywhere. Like Alex Wright had a few of those also. Some big contact on wide receiver screens and scrambles and things like that. All that stuff is certainly contagious.
So you kind of catch you off guard with giving you that game ball in the locker room after the game?
Well, there's a couple things with that. First of all, I was soaking wet after the game, so already peeling my shell off. But my biggest sort of error in that is I mistakenly believed that we were in the locker room and not in a TV studio. So shirtless certainly acceptable in a locker room. Wasn't really prepared for it to be TV studio. College friends can be brutal. Men are a lot more brutal to their friends than they are to others. I got a message after the game. It's like, yo, Schwartz, you leave the shirt on until you lose 15. So, yeah, there's that too. But happy for the players' success in that. That when anytime you give a defensive coordinator game ball, it's really a team thing. I didn't play the game. Those guys played the game, and not only did they play an assignment, or they played a clean game assignment-wise, they played physically. And I think, we always talk about defensively. When you put our film on, you should see guys playing physical, guys playing with great effort, and guys having some personality. Those are the things we preach. And I think if you turn that game on, you'd see all those things. And, that's what sort of led to that's what led to our win, and everything else. It wasn't any magic scheme or anything else. It was those three things that shined through on the film.
During training camp, I think it was you and Coach Tarver who mentioned that you thought Schlesinger had led the team in interceptions in practice. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever really kept track, but I don't really think it was very close. I think, he had a bunch. And you're going to see it. It's just a matter of time. He's had a couple opportunities where he's taken a look away, and the quarterback has either gotten sacked because of what Carson did, or he's gone somewhere else. It's just a matter of time before that shows. That's a part of his game. We've seen him rush. We've seen him play on the perimeter. We've seen him play physically inside. We've seen him be productive on the stat sheet. We've seen him lead the group as far as play call and communication and those things. The next thing you're going to see is some of those plays come up.
And how does he complement that room? Given he's big, he's fast, he's bigger than Denzel. Does he add something a little different in terms of complementing those guys you already have?
Yeah, we were sad to lose Greg, but we did get a good player in return, and it was a tough situation for him the first week coming in. Super early morning flight, just played a Monday night game, had to turn things around really quickly, made some good plays, also had a couple of errors. But, the more he gets boots on the ground and more comfortable with things, you start seeing the playmaker. I thought one of the big things is he did a really good job on that ball in the end zone of getting some vision there. And that was one of the things that we talked about. And he tries to play physically, which is important for a corner. He's got rare speed. He's a state 100-meter and 200-meter champ. That was a track meet. Denzel's tracking him from the other side, but Tyson has a bad angle and still catches up. And I would say this about that game, that, there were a few things that happened that over the course of the year we haven't done a great job in. Whatever. We got a special teams penalty. They had just missed a field goal, and we had a special teams penalty. We didn't go to pieces. We didn't give up a touchdown there. we stopped them, held them to a field goal attempt. They made a long run early in that game, and a guy like Achan is going to make some plays like that. We didn't fit that great, but, Tyson tracked them down. We got to stop, held them to a field goal. And I think, that's probably the biggest thing. There were some times in that game we had some bad field position. We had to punt backed up, got the ball midfield. I was really pleased with our ability to respond to those things because that's something that we haven't always been at our best at over the course of the year, and hopefully that'll move. And, Tyson's a big part of that.
And you mentioned Alex Wright making a couple big plays, obviously, on Sunday. What have you just seen from him in terms of, especially coming off the injury last year, in terms of his development and what he's kind of brought to the table for the team?
Yeah, Alex has been a good player for us. It's just that, some injuries have sort of derailed him. My first year here, he had an injury at the end of training camp. I think it was a knee injury, and that sort of derailed him a little bit, then started playing good football for us. And last year had the tricep thing or whatever that was, shoulder, tricep. But now he's healthy. And he's playing with great effort. He's a factor in pass rush. He's such a big guy, long. He can affect the passer in a lot of different ways. He's playing really physical run defense. There's a lot to like there. We're getting a lot of production out of all of our defensive line. You guys know we play a lot of different guys. But, Alex has certainly made a lot of plays. Some of those pursuit plays he was making in this game, that's what you have to do against a team that's throwing the ball quick and getting the ball out on the perimeter. If you don't have your D-line turning and running and making plays, you're in for a long day. And Miami's offense is good. We played pretty good in that game, but we had a lot of respect for their ability to put points on the board. They had filled up the scoreboard in a lot of their games. But guys like Alex, all our guys, but Alex, Mason made some really good effort plays in there. And, our defensive line, as they go, they're the engine that drives us. And when that engine is humming with guys like Alex and Mason and Miles and Malik and all those other guys, when they're making plays, that really helps spur the rest of our defense.